Good evening, everyone. So this is our last budget hearing, and we hope that we can finalize everything this evening, and at which time tomorrow we will send all the information to the paper and put out notice to the public. So we've been through this presentation multiple times. I'm going to try to skip through it, and it is available on the website for the public to view. But one of the, although we talk about finances, right, the most important thing here is student achievement. And so on this slide, you will note all of the student success from earning Regents diplomas to advanced Regents diplomas, scholarships. We have winning art and music programs, fantastic scholar athlete teams. So this is one of the things that we take the most pride in. So in preparing for the budget, we focus on every child every single day with sound fiscal management in mind. We spend some time with routine analysis of budget codes to forecast areas of efficiency, and that takes place through speaking with all the budget managers to ensure that their needs are met, as well as looking for efficiencies in the case that we may not be using things anymore. We've had clean audit reports by our external auditor. Within this budget is the proposal for an internal auditor, and I think that would be an excellent practice to have an internal auditor come in at least next year, and you can determine for the future, but somebody to look at specific practices. Because of our size, we are not required to have an internal auditor. We have established reserves to protect the future, and we're going to spend a little time this evening talking about both the repair and the capital reserve. We've had careful spending and funding of that capital reserve, which I think is the most important thing, because you are protecting the future. You are taking any excess fund balance where there's been efficiencies throughout the year and been able to look at future projects, like we just finished our air conditioning and door project, of which we put both of those projects were about $2 million in totality. I think they were $980,000 each. Between the two projects, we saved $600,000 by making sure it was well vetted. So that money will go back into the repair reserve. So although there was voter approval for $2 million, we spent only about $1.4 million of that. And then last year we created and funded a repair reserve, which is going to be very helpful as we look to the future. And for the next school year, we want to address some of the roofs that we've had some infrared studies where they need some significant repairs at Cutchogue East and at the high school. And of course, the AAA bond rating. So we make sure our budget is in balance with long-term sustainability, of course, an excellent education for students, and yet fiscal responsibility for the taxpayer. This slide is we talk about budgeting as a constant cycle. These are our main components or cogs in the wheel here in terms of staffing, our infrastructure. You notice student learning is highlighted, and safety and security, and of course, curriculum and technology. But you need to have a vision, you need to plan for it, and then obviously implement and assess it. Talk a little bit about the budget calendar. Some of our budget strategies are looking at high quality instruction and opportunities for children, making sure your budget is aligned to the district's mission and goals, achieving a tax levy that's palatable to the taxpayer, and that's something that we've been able to do over the past 3 years, well below the proposed tax levy. And this year, our tax levy threshold was 2.44 in this superintendent's budget. I proposed a 1.42%. And that's something that you will need to finalize tonight based on all the categories. We've had developed a multi-year plan for educational programs and district initiatives. Again, I spoke about some of those reserve funds and some of the educational opportunities. Here, if people would like to look at the slide, you can see the comparisons over the years in terms of where we actually had the proposed budget compared to the allowable tax levy. This year, we are a little bit lower than typical, but we use some reserve funds to be able to bring down that number, as well as some unappropriated fund balance that we anticipate at the end of this school year due to some savings that we just didn't use some of those funds this year. Furthermore, we wanted to be recognized that we are in the middle of a pandemic and the community's ability to pay. So again, another reason to be cognizant of that number. This slide speaks about the significant components that the budget makes up. Obviously, salaries and employee benefits are the greater portion of this. This is a people organization. So without the people, we wouldn't have the instruction. Let's see. This is another way to look at it just in percentage. So here are some of our budget drivers that make up the different components of the budget, and these are spoken about throughout the presentations within different the different budget managers. And again, this speaks to the salaries. So the 2021-22 proposed budget, the proposed budget is a 1.93% change over last year. Again, the 1.42% is what I am asking you to approve this evening. And of course, we never want to look at that last number, the contingency budget. We hope that the community has faith in the district, but we certainly are below the tax cap levy. Again, another way to look at the actual budget amounts. So for the 21-22, it's a $42,216,806 is what the budget we are asking the community to approve. So we talk about some limitations that go into this. And, the governor goes out and says there's a 2% cap. There is not an exact 2% cap. There are some exceptions to that 2% cap that come into play, such as certain aid for certain, like foundation aid. In this case, we had some it's called a pandemic adjustment. So there was some aid given in that area. So there's some pluses and minuses that go into that 2%. Sometimes your capital projects and things like that, the aid you get in on and that. So again, depending on how much construction you're doing, that number is going to fluctuate from year to year. So our proposed budget supports enriched education opportunities for students. When this slide was made in January, we spoke about continuing to strengthen the language arts program. Our new math program is going to be expanded to grades 3 through 8. World language programs still remain in the elementary schools, which is very unique for an elementary school to be able to provide that, going all the way up through the high school. We've expanded our electives over the past couple of years, higher level courses, programs for our challenged learners. Mrs. Allegro spoke about some mental health services that are included within this budget, as well as expanding our need for some special area classes for our most challenged learners. We pride ourselves in providing professional development, not only for teachers, but also even our security team. We want to constantly improve the learning environment. That's something that we value, and especially, in COVID, we had to be a little bit flexible in terms of the seating. So we have a cycle of furniture replacement to make sure that our students' needs are met. And again, the environment that you're sitting in or working in every day counts. We are exploring solar energy. We've spoken about that many times. We have an engineering study out there that's actually should be completed possibly by the end of the week that will allow us to just make determinations in terms of should we explore solar energy on our roofs or some other locations within the district. In this budget, included within this budget is an elementary walking trail that we really feel like the outdoor activity is really important to students. And again, Dr. Devine has expressed interest in this, even in cold weather, being able to get kids out on a track at Cutchogue East, bounce balls, run, do some different exercises and things. At this point, we have a 5-year building condition study that we are working on with our architect. I ask that the board consider reviewing that in an upcoming meeting, perhaps say in May, because there are many items on that list that you'll need to consider for the future and prioritize the repair or replacement of some of those items. At this point, we are just recommending, though, that you pay attention to the roofs for next school year. And then, of course, our continued cybersecurity awareness, training, and systems. Jerry Doherty is excellent about keeping us on track and making sure that our systems are safe. So this is again, this was built in January, and it's fluctuated even as of this week. But you can see some enrollment changes over time. Pretty much the enrollment changes are really based on kindergarten incoming numbers compared to our graduating class. We pride ourselves on small class sizes, outstanding programs. You know, one of the things that's really we're invested in is our extracurricular activities, such as our clubs, our interscholastic teams. We had to use some numbers from 2 years ago in this slide because obviously we didn't have all our athletic teams participating. But at one, you know, going back to 1920, we had almost 601 participants in athletics. Our outstanding NJROTC program, in our last board meeting, we talked about a full ride scholarship for one of our students who attended that program. Mental health supports are so important, and I really feel over the past 2 years we've really been able to address that either with a behavioral specialist or some social workers, and just really bringing the team together. We provide terrific extracurricular activities such as DECA, our virtual enterprise program, mock trial even at the elementary level, a financial literacy course, coding, all the way K through 12. We talked about AP computer science next year. So we're really moving in the right direction. We are offering universal pre-K, again, within the district, and expanding that to a child care program, an afternoon or a morning child care program, depending on the interest level. That flyer will go out when we return from the break to offer that to families. The UPK portion of that is paid by a grant, and then the second half of that, if a parent chooses to have the child stay for the afternoon portion, or if the child's in afternoon, comes in the morning, that will be a paid program by the parent, so for the other half day. We have environmental programs. We actually just are working on our water conservation grant that we received through Mrs. Teppenhart that will start at the elementary level. That grant was on hold, and we just received notice that we can start that up again, and that's in partnership with our facilities team. All kinds of community service activities that are so meaningful for students. The give back, you know, we talked about the scholarships that the community gave to the students in $124,000, but yet our students really take a lot of opportunities to give back to their community, and I think that's really important. I know Mr. Petretti and Dr. Devine really value that, and you can hear that in all the activities and things that we've shared at the beginning of each of the board meetings. Again, these are our all advanced study classes, and we couldn't do it without our partners. You know, we meet regularly with our booster and music, our athletic boosters, music boosters, PTAs, PTSA, and SEPTA organizations. So these were capital reserve items to be considered for a multi-year plan. At this point in time, we are not recommending to use the capital reserve for next school year within this budget. So we ask that the board actually just set that money aside and use that money to do some of the things on the 5-year building condition survey for the following school year. You really need to dig into those those items and spend some time looking at the cost of those items and the cycle in which you want to address them. We've been talking about a STEM wing at the high school, I think, Sean, since I came here, right, for the past 3 years, and that is something that we'd like you to consider for the future. And I know Mrs. Anderson asked at the last meeting, could we have a more in-depth proposal of what that might be? So I suggest you consider saving right now it's about $3.2 million in that capital, and that you save that for future needs. Some of these things on here, the roofs at Cutchogue East and at the high school are in need of repair. Those two projects come to about $2.2 million in totality. We have about $750,000 in the capital reserve and in the repair reserve right now. I suggest that in August, you take some time to look at any remaining fund balance and place that money in the repair reserve to address those projects. Should you make that decision in August to use any excess funds, you would need to have a hearing for the public. So although it's not voter approval, the board needs to have a public hearing at which time you decide to use any of those funds out of the repair reserve. And let's see. And again, I just want to thank the Board of Education for their support, and of course the administrators and the teachers who really give input into the needs of the district and what's best for our students. Our parents give us input into this process through their parent organizations, but of course we want to thank the community because we could not obviously do this without their support, and they are great partners in this process. And we ask everyone to come out and vote on Tuesday, May 18th. We expect a regular voting where you'll be able to come in person, but people can also request absentee ballots.